Join us and our friends as we fall down the rabbit hole of security wonder. If you're ready to see how deep it goes, you've found the right place. Pour your tea. You're not late for office hours. And now, our Red Queen, Tara Wheeler.
Hey folks, how you doing this week? I'm Tara Wheeler, CEO of Red Queen Dynamics. I have the inimitable Jones with us, as always. This has been a boring week in cybersecurity. So how's it going, Jones?
Oh, it is going fantastic. This week has flown by. I looked up and it's Thursday and it's time for office hours again.
It is, and it's nice to see that and feel that. Oh my gosh, I got a stitch. Hang on. Oh, you ever get those stitches in your side? So I guess yeah, it's performance anxiety for a podcast, right? Yeah, that's what's up. No, actually, it is this right here, the stitch in my side. That is my TikTok / cybersecurity executive order pain. It's kind of like always with me in the rib cage, right?
No wonder you have it today, then. Absolutely.
Oh my God. Oh Lord. How are you doing? How you wrote a Substack a couple of days ago, I think, about some of the upcoming conversations that we're going to be having here. So what is going on out there, dude?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, as this administration is winding down, they're putting some stuff in place. They announced the Cyber Trust Mark program a couple of weeks ago, and that's aimed at putting a little icon or a badge on future IoT devices that indicates that they have like a minimal set of security standards. And then today there was a huge EO that was announced as well that adds a whole bunch of other stuff for kind of really strengthening America's cybersecurity programs and defenses. So I know we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but it has been kind of a whirlwind of new programs and new things coming out over the past couple of weeks.
I'm super interested in something. I saw a tweet from Eva Galperin a little bit earlier today on the TikTok ban that's supposed to come into effect on sort of, and she was like, "This is sort of big. We didn't really mean to vote for Brexit energy like this that's happening right now with the administration." Like, wait a minute, that's what Brexit is? It means we leave the European Union, right? Like banning TikTok. What is that? Chicken soup on Thursdays? Or no, it's banning TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And here's the problem. Unlike the conversations I remember having, that's right, it was Montana banning TikTok, and this is like a year ago. Maybe I wrote something for like Washington Post Council on Foreign Relations, and I was like, the problem is that app stores don't know the difference between Montana and Delaware, but app stores do know the difference between Canada and the United States, right? And that's one of the reasons actually a Montana ban would have been complicated. How do you prove you're not in Canada when you live on the High Line, Shelby, Montana, right? And you connect to those cell towers. So the problem is that it is feasible to ban an app on a nation level, country-based level. So like, what's going to happen? My friend Joe Hall, Dr. Joe Hall at Internet Society, was like, this might actually cause a bunch of influencers to have to carry around two phones, just like, Congress critters. I actually thought it was pretty funny. Like, what do you think is going to happen to all these influencers and like every one of my 14-year-old girl relatives?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had just the biggest laugh over the past 2 days because as people are preparing for TikTok to eventually, turn off in America, everybody is streaming to an app called RedNote, right? So the context for anybody that's living under a rock that doesn't know why TikTok is going away is because it's owned by a Chinese parent company, and there is a large growing discontent with the fact that they are potentially, stealing tracking data, spying, things like that, and all of that's going back to China. And the thing that was making me really laugh about this whole thing is everybody's now streaming to RedNote, which is literally Chinese social media. And obviously the ban will probably include other apps as they move forward if this thing ultimately goes. And right now it is so up in the air. I know, SCOTUS has declined to stop the action, but the incoming administration is now posturing about, blocking the the ban as well. So, but I've been laughing as everybody is giving everyone instructions on how to get onto Red Note so that you're not on TikTok, right? And I think the salient point here, Tara, for me is that general America doesn't care about why TikTok is being banned, right? This is some other posturing and things going on by the government. But what do you think about that? The fact that like the average American doesn't really seem to care, and they're more than happy to go to another Chinese app. Yeah.
I think the best way I've seen it put is this. Are you trying to tell me that I can't stop myself from being swatted, from people harassing me on the internet, from my public information being leaked everywhere and sold to the companies you're already complaining about? There is no consumer data protection in the United States the way that there is in basically every single other major industrial and modern country. I am a person who can be at will targeted by advertisers, third parties, APTs, foreign countries. You're doing absolutely nothing whatsoever to protect me. But you're mad about TikTok dances, right? Like I absolutely understand that rage and that desire for protection, and at the same time, a desire to turn this into a protest. Great take from Malware Tech, which was like, yeah, the problem that we're having here is that all of a sudden we just had 1 million new people in the United States make really good Chinese friends. They're cross-culturally collaborating. They're subtitling videos in the opposite language, sharing information back and forth, and all of a sudden Americans are discovering walkable cities, right? So, I absolutely understand the protest. As a technologist, and as somebody that talks to policymakers, I continue to be angry about how difficult it is to explain what TikTok is and how it works to people in the Senate. And the classic, I think it was Senator Tom Cotton, who was trying to grill the CEO of TikTok, who's in Singapore, who lives in Singapore. TikTok is based in Singapore, right? Like its parent company, ByteDance, is located in China, but that is the equivalent of saying, I don't even know how much American companies are owned by like the Saudi royal fund, right? And that's like saying your parent company is in Saudi Arabia. Well, that's true of freaking like General Motors and stuff like that. Like I don't know which one, but I'm sure go take a look, right?
Yeah.
So this is the equivalent of saying the parent company for, an American car company is a company that owns, 20, 40% of it in some other country. Well, welcome to the way that the international economy works. So this is the complaint being made. And then Senator Tom Cotton is like, are you now, or have you ever been? I was like, shut up. Is this really happening on live television now? Are you now, or have you ever been? And the CEO is like, Senator, I'm a Singaporean. And you get the feeling that Senator Cotton was sitting there thinking to himself, is that like being from Miami? Right? Senator, I'm telling you, I am. Do you know Singapore is a sovereign country? Like it's not a Chinese protectorate. Also, basically, fully housed by Malaysia, wrong country, wrong part of the world. So I'm looking at this, and the problem I continue to have is the difficulty of explaining what it is. Somebody was like, forget your boomer complaints on Blue Sky earlier today. Give me your best millennial complaint. And I was like, my best millennial complaint is that I have had to explain TikTok to both the boomers and Gen Z.
Yeah.
Neither one understands what it is. The boomers are freaked out about it. And Gen Z is like, it's magical cloud juice, right? What dances. And I'm like, no, it's physical infrastructure that exists, and you got to handle it's probably housed on AWS East, like the rest of everything on Earth, right?
Sure.
So
anyway,
that's my feels. My feels are complex right now, but I would describe them mostly as Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. Yeah, I think that's excellent. And look, the next week is going to be interesting. So Sunday, I guess, is D-Day, is the 19th when it's supposed to go dark, and
sure.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know it's like one of the most used apps in the world at the moment, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with all that traffic, and where people are going to doom scroll.
Oh yeah, like I'm a 45-year-old woman. Go look on the internet. I can't hide it at this point right now. P.S. Where's my Consumer Data Privacy Act? So I'm 45. I'm getting my TikTok through Instagram Reels. I'm not even pretending that I'm not at this point, right? Like, I'm just sitting here late at night. This is on Instagram, and and so where is the source of late night puns going to come from at this point, right?
I
And like
know.
the entire internet is just screenshots and videos of other places on the internet. Somebody on Reddit was like, "Do we even
Yes.
remember this for at this point?" So, and I think this because I'm thinking about like the MSPs and MSSPs that are asking that are getting asked questions like, "Am I still allowed to advertise my small business on TikTok, on our phones, on like?" Are my employees going to get in trouble if they have TikTok on their phones and they're using it to promote our business? TikTok is a massive way. A lot of American small
Yeah.
businesses, retailers, people in our industry and are served by our industry, they promote their businesses this way. So, and the answer is,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suspect on Sunday, like everything's just going to go dark, and that's going to be that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. There is still a little bit of time for somebody to throw a Hail Mary at TikTok. I doubt it's going to happen. But who knows? With the new administration coming in on Monday, anything's up in the air. Who knows what can happen?
Sure. Well, I think the reason TikTok, when we describe it as going dark, the Biden administration had eyed basically forbidding new users to sign up, is my understanding. And and TikTok was like, no, and probably have some pretty good technical reasons for this. You can't probably stop new users from signing up because that's probably intimately connected with their SSO and user sign-in flow.
Mhm.
Right? There's probably not a way to detangle that SSO and IAM infrastructure. Would be my best guess. Would you guess something similar?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some ways you could cripple it to get what you wanted to, but I suspect that you have a point that the and this is something again the average user is going to have no idea about, but the complex web of things that has to happen just to log into or to any other social media service. I mean, for people like us that deal with this on a regular basis, the single sign-on is, a couple of different protocols and all these things stitched together to make this happen seamlessly, without any user action. But yeah, I suspect that they could cripple it if that's the way they want to go. It's unclear to me whether I think my understanding was it has to be removed from the app stores. So on Sundays, you won't be able to download it anymore if you don't have it. But whether the service again will go completely black, whether it'll continue to run, I think they'll probably push the bounds a little bit if I had to guess, because why not? Why wouldn't you?
I guess. I think why wouldn't you? But also, this is such an incredible opportunity to watch a mass protest happening, I think.
Sure.
And folks, ask your questions and throw your comments in here as well too. I'm just going to say that down here because I feel like this is the time where we can ask questions and have this discussion. Like, if you're running an MSP, if you're running a small business, like, are you going to get in trouble if you use TikTok to promote your business? I mean, are they going to get to you? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So but at the same time, on an individual basis, one of the reasons that the Putin regime has been so powerful for so long is the conflicting web of regulatory and legal requirements inside Russia for a lot of different stuff like finance, banking, investment, real estate, the legal profession. So one of the reasons Putin has the power that he has is there are conflicting regulations, and to abide by some, you must be in breach of others. And as a result, you can selectively choose which you're going to tell a company, an oligarch you've gotten mad at, that they're in trouble with.
Yeah.
That's the reason why that's powerful. And on a lot of levels, that's what makes this powerful, it could be small businesses that are targeted based on certain kinds of content. I'm thinking of my friends who are sex workers right now. I'm thinking friends who run canna businesses, right? Like this can be used by, in essence, morality police to mass target a segment of businesses that continue to use this application. So yeah, be cautious. And it sucks. And I'm sorry, and we'll try to solve this problem. There is something to be said for the fact that I don't want to discount the fact that very likely ByteDance is doing absolutely every single thing that the U.S. Senate is claiming it is. The hypocrisy on claiming that that's the problem when
Oh, I know. I know.
not acted to prevent third-party brokerages from selling users' data to the exact same parent entities is the protest. Not that it's not happening, but don't pretend this is why it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the hypocritical things that I've kind of recognized with this as well is,
Mhm.
the American government is doing a lot of the same stuff, and as long as they're doing it, it's okay.
Mhm.
Just don't let anybody else do it, because then all of a sudden the moral outrage and the pearl clutching. So
Such outrage, such pearl clutching. Like I'm a fan of pearls. Got a few of them myself. I feel like I just want to kind of that might be my post on Sunday. Just
there you go.
oh heavens to Betsy. Right. And this also there's two sides to this too, which is, and this is maybe the last thing I'll say, and then let you kind of wrap up with your thoughts too. The Montana State Senate voted to ban TikTok. This was like a year ago for this exact reason, and a lot of think of the children. Kids are being impacted. Their data is getting sold to China. Yeah. There was a lot of that, and it took a lot of technologists. Just sort of. I don't want to mock these people. I mean, I do, but I managed to restrain myself. And the reason I lived in Montana for 3 years, got my undergraduate degree there. I love Montana. It's a beautiful state. It's fabulous. I mean, are we going to call it the last best place? No, but that's because I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful, beautiful state. I love it. I'm not intending to mock the people there, but you can't do that with technology. There is no technological way to bound that technology appropriately with the borders of the state of Montana with tech. There is a way to do it on a countrywide basis. And what I'm scared of is that this administration or this Congress or this judiciate is going to learn that a blunt hammer solves a tool or solves a problem. I'm scared of countrywide bans like this, by virtue of the fact that it makes everybody mad, are demonstrated to be really effective ways of creating mass attention on a problem, possibly distracting from something else. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess my other concern with it is that the power that the government, the president, has to ban an app can be wielded in any number of ways, right? I mean, right now the ire and the focus is on TikTok, but what happens when it turns to to something else? What happens when it's no more VPNs? What happens when it's no more insert app here? Who knows what the outrage is tomorrow? And that's a very dangerous place to be, in having the unilateral authority to just declare an app, and not to mention, for the first time ever, really, to say an app is illegal to use or illegal to have in the United States. And that's the stuff that scares me, is just that this sets a precedent. It's a nasty precedent. And, for everybody who doesn't like either the incoming or outgoing administration for one reason or another, think about the fact that at some point, the guy you don't like or the gal you don't like is going to have this power moving forward.
Right. So. I love it. Absolutely. I mean, First Amendment this way and that way, but I love the way that you phrase that. Think about the fact that if you claim this power, the next guy gets it too. Yep. Or I'm just saying, next gal. I love the way you put it, right? Yep. Like here we are for that.
There you go.
There's that conversation to be had, and at the same time, it does. Who knew I was going to find myself on the same side of Crypto Wars 4 with VPNs and TikTok, with Tradwives and Hobbit clips. Right? TikTok, God love them. Here we are all together in the same boat. Protect our right to express ourselves on the internet.
Yep.
All right. But I feel like there is a push towards trying to create some of that consumer product safety, if only with the very, 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 very last minute EO by the Biden administration, which I had a chance to have a couple of conversations about last year too. I just posted this up in the comments. So I know you were doing some comments on this too, like what's going on with this? I have opinions capital letter on it as well too, just in case you're wondering. Continue on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure between us, this will fill the rest of office hours today. So yes, basically, for anybody that has not seen it yet, this is super breaking news. But the White House has issued a new executive order, and it's aimed at strengthening America's cybersecurity defenses. It's going to focus heavily on federal systems, IoT device security, and software supply chain integrity. So this new order establishes new security standards. It's going to implement quantum-resistant cryptography requirements, and it's going to create a framework for leveraging AI in cyberspace. And my soul just died a little bit having to say that out loud. But at its core, yeah. This is one of the most extensive cybersecurity directives ever issued, which in itself is something to say, right? And it really touches so many things, from how government agencies are going to handle encryption all the way through how consumer IoT devices are secured. So this is, I mean, you want to talk about a 10-mile wide EO. The thing is massive. There's a lot going on with it. But what are your initial thoughts on this so far?
I think I had some knowledge of what was going to happen before this came out, just because of some of the stuff that I do. And one of the things I really wanted to focus on when I looked at this was, this sort of the background intentions of putting something like this out is, how do we prevent the next CrowdStrike? Yeah. And one of the things I said was the elements described in this EO would have prevented CrowdStrike in July of last year, but they're not going to prevent the next CrowdStrike because we don't know what that's going to look like. And at least some of what we have to do is start talking about what constitutes due care and industry best practices. Right. Now, it's very hard to codify due care, but being expected to live up to what we think of as the trust of our profession is really important to every single information security person that I respect, and almost every information security person I've ever met. Yeah. Right. And the challenge here is that the EO specifies standards, but it doesn't necessarily, but I think the intention there is to have this be at industry level best practices, but it doesn't specify how we stay up to date with those industry best practices in future. And as a result, that would have prevented CrowdStrike half a year ago, but we don't know what the next single point of failure in American supply chain security is going to look like a year from now. We don't know if the standards outlined here are going to solve that. So we've got to start moving to a way where we trust cybersecurity professionals. And I think that I want you to talk a little bit about Cyber Trust Mark, because that's amazing. Yeah. Also, Matt Lee on our advisory board has done some work with that as well too. He thinks it's really important. But I feel like we've got to start having a way to have industry standards be part of best practices and standards for our due care. Yeah. Right. It's not necessarily precisely encoded in law how a doctor should practice medicine. Instead, it's considered that they are accredited and they keep up to date. They're supposed to do the stuff they're supposed to do as a doctor, right? Yeah. And the laws understand that it would be very difficult to keep enough judges up to date as a surgeon to be good at determining whether or not a doctor did the stuff they were supposed to do. And that's why we've got professional bodies. We're starting to have that in cybersecurity, and I want to see more of that trust move over there as opposed to standards that frankly can get gotten around. Oh, yeah. Tell me what you think. Oh, and I want to talk about the vendor assessment process in here too, but tell me what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, with any of these things, with the Cyber Trust Mark stuff, with a lot of things that are in this EO, my concern is always, I'm so glad you went to the doctor analogy, because I really do equate a lot of the ethics and stuff that practitioners in cybersecurity, that we espouse and that we live by. There isn't an exact equivalent to the Hippocratic Oath, but I feel like there really should be on the cybersecurity side. And, because we're doing what we do, a lot of us, most of us, for the betterment of society and for of our fellow human beings and everything. And it's really important that we figure out a way to marry up what we're doing, in the private sector with what's happening in the public sector,
Yeah.
because that is the only way to ensure that there is some sort of standard as we move forward for how these practitioners are performing, right?
Mhm.
Is that it's going to take a massive cooperation of public and private industry to come together and do this. And this has always been my fear with government proclaiming that we've got new cybersecurity standards. And it always scares me because I'm like, I've worked in the government. I spent a decade in the intel community, and the government is almost never, except on the offensive side. On the defensive side, they're almost never, even within the last 5 years of where the private industry is.
Mhm.
And so I think that's really important that as we do this, we set up that framework so that we can keep current. It changes too fast for the government to keep up with kind of the minimal standard. And so that's where I'm really hoping that we start to just see this integration come to life.
Mhm. I absolutely agree, and I'm thinking they've got the cybersecurity trust mark information here too as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is and what it means?
Yeah, sure. So IoT devices are super prevalent, and they have been
Mhm.
for like the last probably 5 to 8 years, maybe 10 years, right? So cameras, thermostats, all kinds of gadgets and doodads and stuff like that are these IoT devices, Internet of Things, for anybody that is unfamiliar. And so there has been zero standard for how these things are secured, if they're secured at all. And unfortunately, the reality is most of these things have next to no security. Whether they're being updated is a whole other thing. So, like many of us know, software needs to be updated. Software is inherently, buggy, and researchers are able to find holes and vulnerabilities that are able to be exploited. And time again, this happens all over the place. Well, IoT devices are in your home, they're on your networks, and a lot of them are just extremely buggy and prone to being exploited. So, Cyber Trustmark is a government program that's designed to tell all IoT developers, manufacturers, that there is a minimum standard that you have to meet when you're producing IoT devices. And to signal this to consumers, there is a little icon that they're going to put on the packaging, and it's a little shield with a check mark on it. And that is going to signal to a consumer that this device meets some minimum standard that was set, for the entire industry. Now, that sounds kind of good, right? But the
Mhm.
program is entirely voluntary, number one. So not every IoT manufacturer has to comply with this. They just have an option to if they want to. And then, the second piece of that is,
Mhm.
and this is a part that just made me rub my temples a bit when I was reading
Yeah.
about it initially. They're going to put a QR code on the box
Oh
that you have
God.
to that will tell you about the security features. Now, I'm sure anybody in the field is automatically cringing because we've been telling people stop scanning pictures of QR codes, right? Because you don't know where they
Mhm.
go. You have no clue what's going on with a QR code.
Mhm.
And so to me, that was almost a laughable inclusion of scan this inherently insecure thing to see the security features of the device you're about to purchase. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of the Cyber Trust Mark. It is only for consumer IoT devices. However, the new EO released today by the Biden administration does extend that into the federal space by
Okay.
2030, I think 2027. Sorry,
Okay.
2027.
Well, it's helpful to know that, and at the same time, the when the FCC permitted a QR code to be part of a Super Bowl ad for crypto.com in like what 2021 or 2022,
Yeah, I remember
all
that.
the celebrities doing that ad, when they permitted that to happen, it's difficult for people to understand why we as security people complain about so much shit
Yeah.
right? Like when you go talk to a normal human being about cybersecurity, Jones, like what's the one thing they might tell you they know you're supposed to do in cybersecurity? Just think about like a normal human being, just a random human, 57-year-old receptionist. What is he telling you he knows he's supposed to do?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. You know, the first one that I think I get a lot is looking at links before clicking on them. They know we're supposed to do
Yeah,
that. Right? Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I have heard look at links. I'm supposed to look at links and figure out if it's what it's supposed to be before, and I'm supposed to make sure that there's the little green padlock there.
Yes. The
And I've
padlock.
also heard, and I know I'm supposed to be changing my passwords every 30 days, but I can just never get to it.
Yeah.
That's something from 25 years ago that's stuck so hard in everybody's memory because they understand what it means,
Mhm.
right? And they know, and that's something that we hit hard for like a decade, and then we changed our
Yeah.
recommendations. We're like, no, you're not supposed to do that anymore. And like, there's stuff in medicine that is the same way. I'll give you an example. Did
Okay.
you know that perimenopausal and menopausal women are super good to get hormone replacement therapy? It turns out that 20 years ago there was a study that falsely connected something that probably 10% of American women should be on to breast cancer, and it was a poorly done study on the same level as vaccines cause autism.
Oh,
And so like you'll go talk to bunches of different kinds of doctors and be like, hey, what's going on with this? And I've talked to a bunch of people about this, and there's Reddits, there's all kind of stuff like that. And just in case anybody's wondering why in cybersecurity we're talking about menopause and medicine, it's because they're very closely connected, not only as an
sure.
analogy, but in how we handle things. Go talk to Adam Shostak about why cybersecurity is public health. So the problem we'll have now is that the only thing anybody remembers about HRT is that it causes breast cancer. They've never updated their priors from 20 years ago when they were given a single piece of information. I don't know who remembers Terry Goodkin's book series, the Sword of Truth series. And if you remember that, doorstop fantasy novels from the late 90s, early 2000s, in case anybody's wondering, I think it went to like 17 novels, but just stop after 6 because 6 is the Ayn Randian crazy one. The first one was actually kind of great. And in it, it was called Wizard's First Rule, and one of the things that that stuck with me about that book was the often cited maxim that in the absence of any other information, people will believe what they've been told.
Yeah.
I feel there's a corollary there, which is that you have to make at least as much of an impression on somebody about that particular topic to get them to update their beliefs. But it made much of an impression on fixing stuff. It's why a retraction of an article that caused a lot of harm to somebody might be legally okay, but it doesn't undo the damage because only people remember is the first thing they read about it. So I'd be interested to hear what you think about how we're able to start getting people to update their beliefs about QR codes now. We've been yelling about it. They don't even know yet. You're not supposed to do it. By the time we get it through their heads, QR codes will be safe. Right?
Yeah, I know. You know, I've got a number of thoughts on the matter. You know, I'm actually really disappointed that so I have 2 children, younger children, 11 and 13, and I am blown away that they're being raised in a completely connected, digital, online first world, but are being taught nothing about it in school.
Oh my God, tell me more. Like
So,
this goes to TikTok too. This goes to the conversation we have with everybody. But civics, like cyber civics. Yeah. Tell me more.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, I ask my kids all the time. I mean, as a practitioner who lives this every day, I'm curious, what are you being taught about these things in school? And the answer is nothing. You know, my 2 daughters do have STEM classes, right? So science, technology, engineering, math. They have STEM classes as part of the school that they go to, but they're doing interesting things. Don't get me wrong. They're doing engineering. They're like CADing, you know, objects and stuff like that, and they're building bridges, and those things are great and beneficial and useful, and yes. However, they are interacting almost exclusively through tablets and laptops, but are being taught nothing about them. They're being taught nothing about the internet that they're interacting with every day, and it really blows my mind. So I think this is where we're doing a disservice to the generation that's coming up. You are going to almost exclusively live in this digital online environment. but we will teach you next to nothing about it. And I really think that's a problem, right? So you have kind of two things going on here. You have a generation that's coming up that is blindly trusting a lot of things because they don't know any better. They're not being taught about them. And then you have kind of this older generation that is just getting exposed to a lot of these things that they don't understand. And again, there is no education, for them. Not that, middle-aged folks go to school or anything like that, but things are changing quickly enough that this is really becoming a problem, and I think to your point, checking the links, I got a call yesterday from somebody. They sent me a screenshot of an email. I don't know if this is real or not. Can you tell me? Right. Glad they called, right? They knew better than to just click the thing. They thought it looked weird. It was a phishing link. So,
I'm thinking, yeah, so good that they checked with you. But
yes.
at the time, I love that question. How do I know this is real? Which just takes on like a 17th dimension right now.
Yeah.
So the number of people who are asking questions, I remember looking at the number of pieces of disinfo floating around right now about the Los Angeles fires. And one of the pleas on the part of so many of the people who are running, there's the Los Angeles fire department chief there who's running that, who's pleading for people to stop sharing disinformation. The problem is you can only plead with the people sharing disinformation to stop if they understand what they're passing along as disinformation.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
In this case, mostly it's misinformation, right? There is a difference between those two things, even though we slop them together. Dis and mis are very different. Mis is what happens when somebody in poor faith or intentionally shares information intended to cause harm. That's disinformation. When somebody unknowingly shares something that is perhaps nonsensical, but they're sharing it along and amplifying it to an audience which it may harm, but they're doing so not necessarily in bad faith. That's misinformation.
Yeah.
Right, is how I would define it. And so the problem we're having right now is most of the people sharing information about the LA fires don't know what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And it extends way beyond LA fires too. I mean, almost anything right now is plagued by this problem of, I see something and this is, I think, one of the nefarious sides of social media is that human psychology has been expertly manipulated to the point of knowing that if you have a big reaction to something, whether it's good or bad, you are more likely to interact with that thing, right? So if they say an outlandish thing about the people that are fighting fires in LA or the misappropriation of the program or anything else, you have this big, oh my gosh, I can't believe, share, right? That's or
big if true.
Yeah, you heart it or like it or whatever, and algorithms go, oh, everybody's blowing this thing up, right? So, that in and of itself is another piece that I don't think a lot of people understand, is that social media is just there to drive clicks, drive attention, and it uses outrage and your emotions and your psychology to do it. Yes, cute puppies, cute kitties, like all that stuff. Awesome. Great. Got it. But this is also now like the number one platform that the young kids are getting news from.
TikTok, because I know it ain't Twitter anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, TikTok, absolutely. But that's where most people are getting news. And unfortunately, to your point, a lot of it's misinformation. And I often feel like it takes a full-time job to see something and go, okay, that could be true. It might not be. Now, thanks for the research project. Now I have to go, figure it out.
Well, and that's before Elon Musk started paying people sort of just out of the middle of nowhere for generating a lot of clicks and views on tweets. That was included in one of the stories I was reading this morning on the LA fires and the misinformation. Is that you are directly now financially incentivized, regardless of whether it's true or not, to get as many eyes as possible on given tweets. Absolutely. Now, here's the problem. Is what I just said to you misinformation?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. Is it?
I think it's true.
Okay.
I mean, I read it in the Washington Post, but did anybody see the mission statement situation that got blown up this morning? The Washington Post apparently now is viewing itself as a business platform for AI and customer service when it comes to the news. So go take a look at that. I don't have the energy. I can't believe I'm actually going to say the words, do your own research, but it's out there. So like, I'm so tired, right? But at the same time, we've got a scientific community, so we don't have to do our own research. I wonder if there's going to be a sort of misinformation community in the same kind of way where we can actually go, hey, this is vetted, the Snopes for news, right? I think that's going to start to happen, but this incoming administration has very clearly signaled that they are not interested in continuing forward with the work that CISA used to do, which was sharing information with Facebook, Twitter, and going, hey, this is clearly not true. The Murthy v. Missouri series of lawsuits and conversations around that demonstrated, it was a very serious chilling effect on sharing clearly vetted information from CISA in a claim that it was somehow harming the First Amendment rights of these sites by sharing that something was untrue.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a lawyer. It's my understanding that speech which you know to be untrue and harmful is not protected in the same way by the First Amendment. I don't know. Somebody has to go and take a look at that. But it's my understanding that that's not going to happen going forward. I'm concerned about it. Where is the official source of information?
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of different things at play there, and it's really unfortunate that in some ways the stuff you're talking about with CISA kind of gets wrapped up in this, which is I think there is a general shift in distrust of almost any government source of information. And in a lot of ways, it is an earned distrust.
I don't disagree.
But not everything that comes out of there is false or garbage or misinformation or a psyop or whatever word you want to insert here. But the general public, I think, has really pulled back and is now hypercritical of anything, anything that purports to be from the government, from the president. And the big political divide is only going to continue that even after January 20th. It's going to kind of flip-flop, I think. So really unfortunate, but I think you're right that I would love for something akin to Snopes to come back. And, I grew up with that. See, somebody told you something outlandish, Snopes.com. I'm checking that. And
emails, they forwarded emails like the kids today. Honestly, we had it kind of easy because we could go to Snopes. But then this is the real, maybe this is the ender on this one. You could send your mom or your dad a link on Snopes to say that story about the shelters and the golden retriever and the doctor from or whatever wasn't true, and don't send them money. And you would say, don't believe everything you read on the internet, and you would send them a link and go, this is how you can tell it's not true. And the response you would frequently get back was, well, that's also on the internet. How do I know that's true?
Yeah.
And they're not wrong.
Yeah,
right? Sure. This is a complex problem. I think Matt Blaze, the cybersecurity professor and hacker, who is very famous for the Clipper chip hacks, for just also being awesome, and for election security, has said that election security may be the hardest problem we have to solve in cybersecurity. I bet DIS and MIS are crawling up the ranks to nestle firmly in there at number 2, and they're closely connected because they're human problems, right? I think that's the case. So I don't know. I think for the TikTok thing and for the distrust of government, for those of you that ever get a chance to do this, my friend Mikey Newman puts a series out called Movies with Mikey. And if you ever get a chance to watch this and you love John Wick, I'm remembering how Mikey said, look, John Wick is ultimately boils down to you did this to you, right? And that's what we did with building mistrust in government institutions over the course of the last 20, 25 years. You did this to you. By the way, John Wick 2, I did this to me. Right? Just in case anybody's wondering. It's also a kind of a classic example for just to round us out this week, which is I'm going to ask you about something in your office and I'll tell you about something in mine. I made my own motivation poster. And just in case anybody's wondering, this poster of Keanu Reeves as John Wick It says, work until you no longer have to introduce yourself. And this is kind of the motto I try to walk into the office with every day, right? Just work until you don't have to introduce yourself anymore.
Yeah.
I believe it was falsely attributed to Harvey Specter of Suits.
Yes,
And
I
yet,
did. I think I've heard that before.
exactly. And yet the meme on the internet was so freaking perfect that I asked Deviant to go print it out for me in photo quality at Costco and stick it in
Yeah.
a frame. And it's right. So I get it. I get the fun, but we did this to us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's hard. I sympathize so strongly right now. So what's something in your office you want to tell us about this week that I haven't had a chance to find out about?
So I am very much into taxidermy.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You can't just say that on a live
Okay.
video feed.
All right, here we go.
Go
Here we
right
go.
now. Absolutely. You can't just say that. Come on.
All right. So this is my possum. This is one of my pieces. It's a possum.
No possum drinking, of course.
That, and he just hangs on a cabinet with me. It makes me smile. This cute little possum.
He's a cute little buddy.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
That
So,
is glorious. Okay.
yeah, yep. So those are the things that keep me going. Is all of my furry little friends. I have a raccoon that's up on top of a bookcase as well.
I love that so much. All right. I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait to come and visit you out there at the horse farm, sir. And
Absolutely.
I can't, that's not even beer. I mean, all I'm saying is it worked while I was in college, right? It works. That's all I'm saying. There it is.
I have cheap taste in beer, but expensive taste in bourbon. So you gotta give and give somewhere.
It works for me. The best tasting red beer in the world made with Rainier beer. Just for anybody who wants to remember that commercial from about 25 years. Rainier beer, still great, even though they sold it to the Michelob people or whatever. Don't care. There we go. All right, folks. I hope you have the most wonderful week. We'll get a chance to talk again very soon. This next week, Jones. As always, thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
Try to stay safe out there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm staying in my house.
I'm not leaving. Absolutely. I got coffee in this WeWork and I can curl up under my desk. All right.
There you go.
Have a great week, folks. We'll see you next time. Bring your questions and your thoughts. We're here for you as always. Let me know if I can do anything to help. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye,
everybody. Now,